Night Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, the secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Night Vision. If you're just joining us for the first time, I am your host, Renee Barnett. Got a great show planned for this week that I'm really excited about. But I also just want to check in with you guys. Hope everyone is doing well and hanging in there. I know it's been a tough time, been a tough year, been a tough life. But I'm so glad that you decided to join us here this evening and share a little time with us together, which I'm sure you're going to find very informative and hopefully a lot of fun, which I think it will be. But my guest tonight is an author, and she's a show host. You've seen her on many other shows. But most of all, she's Andrea. She is Andrea, and if you've ever met her, ever watched her, ever heard her, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But my guest tonight is our good friend, Andrea Perron. Hello, my love.
Hi, sweetheart. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you so much. Just hanging in there like everybody else, dealing with that. And I want to thank you very much for postponing your interview. We had a family tragedy last week, and I just didn't feel up to, nor would it have felt proper to do my show that night. And you so graciously agreed to reschedule for tonight, and I was so pleased. So thank you so much. It meant a lot to me.
I was so heartbroken for you, sweetheart. I mean, oh my God, I'm a very empathetic person. I have this inordinate ability to instantly plunge my feet into the shoes of another. And when you called me and let me know what had happened, I wept for you.
Oh, thank you.
It would not have been right to do the show. It would not have. It was the appropriate thing to do, to postpone it. And I hope that you're doing okay. I hope that your family is doing okay, because a shock to the system like that.
It is a terrible shock. I should let the listeners know, I guess, what we're talking about. And that is, I had a niece last Thursday, a week ago, yesterday, who was killed in a terrible, horrible, fiery car crash in Oklahoma. And she's my sister's and brother-in-law's granddaughter. And, of course, I was upset, just on my own. But my first thoughts went to her parents. Her name was Kristen, to Kristen's parents and to her grandparents. Because, we've all lost people, and I've lost a child myself, as most everyone knows. And my thoughts immediately went to the people who are left behind and how they're going to cope with it, and how it is that they're just starting out on this long process of grieving and assimilating all that into who they are and who they're going to become, because they will be forever changed by this. Yeah. I should say, Andrea, just on that note, I didn't intend to do this at this time. I was going to do it at the end, but next week, my guest is going to be a gentleman who is a palliative care and hospice expert. He heads up Dr. Christopher Carr. And I don't know, maybe some of you guys might have seen his TED Talks, but he wrote a book called Death is But a Dream. And what happened is through just sort of osmosis, he really didn't set out to do it. He started noticing and then studying and cataloging the statements and visions of people who are dead, who are dying in their deathbed statements, and the statements around the time that they were passing. And I won't go into too much because we're going to obviously go into it next week, but it does give a real sense of hope. And I was thinking to myself, they always say there's nothing certain in life but death and taxes. And I was thinking, well, I have known a few people I think who've evaded paying their taxes, but I don't know many people who've managed to evade death. So it is a much mysterious subject, and one that people generally have a lot of questions about. Sometimes it's not easy to think about or talk about. But
it's never easy. It's very uncomfortable because, and particularly right now when there's this rogue novel coronavirus circulating the globe that we're all susceptible to, that is so highly communicable that no one has any immunity to, and that we are all victims of in one way, shape, form, or another. So it is, we're all confronting our mortality simultaneously. It's the first time in my lifetime that I have seen something occur that has literally brought us all together in terms of being one human family.
That's right. That is definitely a way to look at it. And I tell you, it's the first time ever, maybe stupidly, but the first time in my life that I ever even thought about, my age or my possible mortality. It's, it just wasn't ever upmost in my thoughts, but once this virus came around and then, we started seeing the number of people that were succumbing to it, and generally the large percentage of those being in my age group, I started thinking about it, and I thought, no, I don't want to start thinking that way. I feel great. I feel young, even though I know I'm not. Okay, everybody, I get it. But I feel fine, and it's not something that dominates my thoughts. But I can see how, they talk about the COVID depression and sort of the mental illness that's, sprang from all this isolation and grieving and all kinds of things. And it just, I think, I think I'm subject to that just like everybody else. I believe, that I have, suffered some depression as a direct result of the coronavirus, even though I've not had it. I've certainly lost family, that's, but like so many people have. But anyway, that's a pretty harsh subject to start out with. And I apologize for starting out that way, because what I want to do is talk about you and all your amazing adventures in life. I was hoping, for those of you who may not know, which are probably not very many of you, but Andrea grew up or, lived as a young person, a child and teenager in the house that is portrayed in the movie The Conjuring. So the real life Conjuring house. And the movie had some pretty wild characterizations of what went on there. But I think, what really happened there was even more outlandish or strange than the movie was able to portray. But, so I do want you to share some of those experiences, Andrea, but then I want to definitely move on into, how you, just like I was talking about, you incorporate things that happen to you in your life, traumas, major events, and things that kind of do forever changes. Well, this was a situation that I can't imagine was not forever changing. It had to have had a profound effect on you, but I think there was an evolution of that effect, which is really what I'm interested in. But can you share some of the real life experiences that happened at the house that you that the movie missed?
Well, the movie missed about 99.5% of what happened at the house. And in fact, there were some vague similarities, in the grand overarching scheme of things. The Conjuring got it right. When people leave that film or you finish watching it, I think they are left with three distinct impressions. The first being that good conquers evil, the second that love conquers fear, and then the impression that the Perron family endured an extreme haunting that we all survived. And that's correct. That's all correct. But in the minutia of it, it was a story conjured in the creative minds of two screenwriters who were so freaked out by reading my books. And James Wan, so freaked out by reading my books, he would not even step foot in Rhode Island. I mean, not only would he not go to the farm, he would not step foot in Rhode Island.
Oh my
and I'm like, well, our property didn't haunt the whole entire state, James, and he's like, nope, not going to do it. Not doing it. Ended up choosing a house to film at in North Carolina.
Yes.
And I teased him. I said,
anything like it.
Yeah. No, I said, James, not for nothing, honey, but, Spanish moss does not grow in Rhode Island. We had them pull all of it out of the trees.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It's a whole different, the movie was good and the house was good in the movie, but it just was a completely different feel and setting from what I know about the Rhode Island house.
And you do know about the house because we've worked together on, live streams at the house, and you have a real sense of the place. And so I'm glad about that. But
it's funny because I wouldn't be a bit afraid to go there myself. Now, I might be slightly reluctant to spend the night alone. But the other thing is what I think. Now, you can tell me, because you have a lot more experience in this area than I do, and you can tell me if I'm just full of it. But it almost seems to me like when there's a haunting, it's kind of like an interchange, that there's something either about the people that are there that either enhance or impede the paranormal activity. And do you think it had anything at all to do with the fact, and you hear this a lot, that there were 3 young girls in the house that sort of triggered a lot of the activity? Or do you think it was just going to be that way, regardless of whoever was occupying?
There were 5 of us, and
brought
into that house an inordinate amount of energy. We were, we visited the house a number of times before my parents actually signed on the dotted line. My mother found the house in June of 1970. And my parents bought the house in December of 1970. We moved in January of 1971. Even though we were technically the owners, my mother refused to move at Christmas time. And who could blame her for that? She just told us to hang on to all of the boxes that our gifts came in so that we could repackage them and move them to our new old colonial farmhouse after the new year. And we visited the house a number of times, and nobody in the family has any recollection of seeing anything strange or bizarre, or having any odd feelings, or feeling like they were being watched, or nothing like that. My mother bought that house because she fell in love with what she perceived to in reality be one of the original colonial homes left in not only Rhode Island, but in the country. And, fell in love with the estate, the old Arnold Estate. It was 200 acres of some of the most beautiful land in New England, and it called to her. It quite literally called to her, and really to all of us. And the first time that I ever went there, I felt like I was home. I recognized the village of Harrisville as we were driving through it, and I asked my mother if we had ever been there before, and she said no. And my father said no. This was not a place that we as a family had ever gone before, and yet I knew where every landmark was. I knew where the library was. I told as we were driving down the main drag, I told my mom, I think there's a waterfall coming up on the right-hand side, and there's a huge white house, and there's a pond and a theater, and then I think there's a library, and right across from the post office. And she's like, honey, how could you know this? This is not, this is not something that you've ever seen before. And I said, I don't know. I feel like I've been here before. And
it almost sounds like you were
later,
beckoned there,
Yeah. And, I can't really explain it, Renee. And I know that you and I have talked about this personally, because you and I have talked for hours, prior to me doing your show for the first time. And I want to thank you for including me in your lineup and bringing me on. Any excuse to talk to you is delightful.
Oh, you're
absolutely
so sweet.
Delightful.
I didn't even pay you to say that. I didn't even pay you. Thank you. So, well, you know how I feel about you as well. So the feeling is entirely mutual. And I love, keeping in touch with you and seeing what kind of adventures you're on. And I know you're doing a talk show now, and you're still continuing to work with our wonderful dynamo, Kathleen Burns, and doing lots of other things. So I have to kind of keep up with you to see what you're up to, because before I know it, you're off doing something that, I have no idea about. Can't slow you down, it seems.
I can't keep up with me. And who would?
It's a good thing you have an agent.
Thought? Yeah, I know. And, who would have thought in the midst of a global pandemic, when every event that I was supposed to attend last year was canceled over a 2-week period, that I would be doing anything other than sitting around twiddling my thumbs, or, perhaps dabbling around working on my next book. And I have been consistently busy throughout 2020 and well into 21 already now. And I'm just, I feel like I've just hit the ground running. There's been an inordinate amount of interest in The Conjuring and in our story. And I don't know why. I can't really explain why. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's a rather old movie now by modern standards. It was, released in 2013, and it was the second highest searched film on Netflix last week. It's
now
always in the top 10.
Really wild.
Yeah.
I wonder, certainly when, when we did the live stream, and when, Kathleen Burns and Jay Blumke contacted me when they were, had just come up with the idea, and they had, secured the rights to film and everything at the, or to stream rather, not film, from the Conjuring House. I was really excited about it. And I was, there was a lot of interest in it. And I thought, isn't it funny how that movie was, a decade ago, and it still got that much interest. There was something in it. I think it was because it was based on a true story that made it more intriguing to people. But if you're saying that there's sort of a renewed interest now, I mean, just this week, it was the highest searched film on Netflix. That is wild. I wonder what is going on. What's out there in the ethers?
Well, quite a lot, actually. And not anything that I can really talk about on your show tonight, but I do promise to come back when everything is set in stone, and I will tell you. But what I will tell you is that people should prepare themselves because the truth is coming to light. And the true story is so much more phenomenal than anything conjured up in that film. But I'm grateful for The Conjuring. I'm grateful for the handling of the material to the extent that they were able to express what my family went through to a certain extent, because had it not been for The Conjuring, I really don't think I'd be, one of the top selling authors in the paranormal or any other genre for that fact. I think that my 3 books, the trilogy, House of Darkness, House of Light, would be languishing in obscurity instead of selling like hotcakes. And so it's because of The Conjuring that they are. There's an awful lot of impact made when your story, even just elements of your story, get made into a major motion picture. So, I'm grateful to James Wan. I'm grateful to everybody that participated in the making of that film, because they really did put their heart and soul into it. They were all well aware that, we were a living, breathing family of real people. And they were very respectful and deeply emotionally invested in their roles. And they also had some particularly disquieting events which occurred while they were filming the movie. And, I don't tell other people's stories. I let them tell their own. But I will say that things happened on that set that can only be explained plausibly by spiritual interference. To the extent that they actually did not fulfill their contractual agreements as actors in terms of going out and promoting the film, because it was too overwhelming for them, and things happened that changed each and every one of the cast members for life, knowing that the spirit activity, the paranormal activity that occurred not only at the house that they used to film at, but also on the sound stage, was overwhelming to some of them. And so it ended up that I was put out by Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema as the face of The Conjuring. And for about 3 months of my life around the opening of that film, I lived out of suitcases and lived on an airplane. It was a bizarre thing, watching, limos pulling into my sister's little farmhouse, in the driveway, picking me up, and the neighbors were like, oh, what is going on over there? Because I was still living in Georgia at the time with my mom and my sister. And, she's just got a charming little farmhouse way out in the country, and most of the neighbors are cows and horses, and they don't tend to gossip. But, for the human beings that were around, they were certainly quite fascinated by my comings and goings. But, I was doing one national TV show after another, one national radio show after another. One day, it was estimated that I spoke to 60 million Americans in one day.
Oh, my goodness. I knew you did all that, but I didn't realize that about the actors and the cast, that, you were doing it all, basically. I didn't realize that. And I didn't realize that they'd had such experiences that they were really affected by it.
Yeah, they were very reticent to go out and talk about the film. Lily Taylor did a little bit. Vera Farmiga did a little bit. Rob Livingstone did a little bit. And more so, James Wan put himself out there more
Right.
And he had, certainly very much of a vested interest, but,
Sure.
predominantly I was the one that was out promoting the film. And when James Wan read my books, he's like, oh, hell no. We just can't, I mean, and the films, all of the films of the Conjuring films are based on the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the paranormal researchers.
Right.
And ours just happened to be the first film. And
Right.
James Wan was particularly shocked that because he is an aficionado of the paranormal and particularly a follower of the Warrens cases, that he had never heard of our case. And that is because my mother would not allow Mrs. Warren to write a book, make a film, do anything in terms of putting our story out there after we left the house. She certainly tried, but it would not fly. My mom wanted to be done with it, completely done with it.
Was that, so it was because she just wanted to sort of leave that behind, but did it possibly have anything to do with your experiences with the Warrens? I know there was an incident that was pretty wild.
Well, the thing is, Renee, the films, all right, I have to put this exactly the right way. I don't want to in any way castigate or cast aspersions against the Warrens, because I truly believe that they were trying to help our family. And that doesn't, that's my personal opinion. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the personal opinion of every single member of my family. But I certainly do believe that they had the best of intentions. But they were human beings. And, they've both passed on now. And I will not say a word against them, because even though they made significant mistakes, they were human. And, in their attempt to help us, events occurred that, probably should have never happened. But they thought that it was in the best interest of my mother and to protect our family. And they initiated a seance in our house. There was no exorcism that occurred in our house. And my mother, in my opinion, was not possessed. My mother was attacked by something that was invited into the house by the medium that they brought to the house, who sat at the table against my father's wishes and began conjuring the spirits and calling forth everything from the netherworld so that she could determine who the culprit was in the house that was creating havoc. And
that sounds crazy.
Well, I consider it spiritual malpractice. You don't kick open wide the doors to the netherworld and invite everything into a supremely haunted house that has an ages-old reputation for being so, when there are, children in the house while it's happening, and expect that there aren't going to be ramifications for that. And something came through that attacked my mother and had all the power that it needed to kill her. It didn't want to kill her. It wanted to make its presence known to the Warrens and the priest and the medium and everyone else that was in that house that night. And it certainly did so, but my mother almost paid with her life. And in fact, when the Warrens left the house that night, they did not know if my mother was dead or alive. She was still laying in the middle of our parlor floor after having been levitated in a 30-pound chair and tossed in a split second from the middle of our dining room into the middle of the parlor. And every one of us heard her skull hit that floor. And I was watching, and I was quite sure I had just seen my mother die. It was the most traumatizing event of my life. And so I am not kidding around when I say to people, be careful what you wish for surely you will get it. There are countless groups around this country who perceive themselves to be the world's leading experts in the paranormal, and the ink on their freaking T-shirts isn't even dry yet. They're wet behind the ears. They have no idea what they're messing with. There is pure, unadulterated evil in the world, and I've seen it with my own eyes, and therefore it is why I deliberately live in the light. I will not let it touch me. I will not let it near me. And I do everything, and I have done everything in my whole life from that moment forward to protect my mother from ever being under attack like that again.
I didn't,
and that was,
I mean, in all this time, Andrea, I did not know that you saw that.
Yeah, I was a witness.
Oh my
So was my
gosh.
sister, Cindy. Yeah.
How horrible. How old were you then?
I was 15.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I didn't even dare try to go help her because I wasn't supposed to be where I was. I was supposed to have been, we had been banished. The kids had been banished to the upstairs of the house, and I watched everything that happened from, a semi-closed door between a darkened dining room and the front foyer of the house, Renee. And I saw all of it, and I wrote it in great detail in the books. And, you ask Kathleen how she feels. She's reading the books right now. And she called me the other day and she said, "Oh, honey, oh my God, I only thought I knew your story. I had no idea." And, the screenwriters were so blown away by my books. They tried to actually incorporate some of what I wrote of the true story into the screenplay. And 7 times they included scenes that Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema immediately told them to redact. And they were basically told, we're not making a film that people are going to run screaming out of the theater. What's the point of making a movie if no one stays to watch it? So it was, I think, the first time in movie making history that a true story was actually toned down so significantly from the actual truth of the events that it bears no actual resemblance to what really happened in that house, because what happened in that house was so much more phenomenal than any singular scene in The Conjuring.
Oh my gosh, that's just... Now, when that happened with your mom, were they all sitting around a table in sort of, a seance type setting, and then she was actually lifted up with the chair or out of the chair? With the chair.
The
chair flew also.
It went with her. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And in a fraction of a second. And that chair, if it weighed an ounce, it weighed 30 pounds. It was a captain's chair. It was solid rock maple, with big, huge arms on it. It was my father's chair for the head of the table. And he didn't want anything to do with the Warrens. He did not want anything to do with the seance. And it was Ed Warren and the priest that convinced him to let it go on. And Mrs. Warren said to him, "Roger, if you love your wife, you'll let us do this. Your wife is oppressed. She's very close to being possessed. This has to happen. This has to happen now." And he didn't believe it, and he didn't think that there was any cogent reality to what they were talking about doing. And Ed and the priest talked to him for about 45 minutes before he very reluctantly allowed it to happen. But, you could have cut the air with a knife in that house that night. The tension was so high that it was just so negative and thick and heavy and oppressive in every way. And my mother was just shutting down because when my father got angry, that was the time to get the hell out of Dodge. Just get away from him. It was very ugly.
Oh, God, your dad's such a sweetheart. I can't imagine. But I'll take your word for it.
He punched Ed right in the face that night, and bloodied his nose, probably broke it. I don't know. I don't know if he broke it, but, he took a man that was twice his size to the floor because when my mother went flying through the house, my father tried to immediately go after her, and Ed grabbed his arm and tried to stop him, and my father turned around and cold-cocked him. It was horrible. The language that came out of my father that night, I had never heard. It was so ugly and so horrible. And, he ordered them to leave the house. He ordered there were cinematographers that had set cameras up in the cellar. And Mrs. Warren told them to hurry, quick, and go down and get their equipment. And both of those men went flying down the cellar stairs and came back a minute later, both of them sobbing, gasping for air. And their very, very expensive state-of-the-art cameras, when they got downstairs, had been picked up on the tripods on which they were mounted. And it was like in the movie Signs where, the brother says, swing away. It was like those tripods had been folded and those cameras had been bashed into thousands of pieces against solid rock walls of the foundation of the cellar. There was nothing left to salvage. There was nothing left to gather up. And they went screaming out of the house. The audio specialist had a big reel-to-reel. She closed it up and she got out. The Warrens left. They had to help the medium out of the house because she had collapsed on the table, and they had to lift her physically up and remove her from the house. The priest was standing over in the corner of the dining room, trembling, visibly quaking, just absolutely terrified out of his mind by what they saw that night. It was, Mrs. Warren told me 40 years later, we were over our heads the moment we crossed the threshold of your home.
Yeah.
No, but that's not how it was represented in the film, because, the whole series of films was supposed to be designed as a testament to the work of Ed and Lorraine Warren as paranormal investigators. And they were, put in the best conceivable light.
Sure.
And so, when the screenwriters tried to put in real elements of the story, they were told to remove it. And that it simply was too intense and that people wouldn't be able to handle it. And, frankly, I don't think that they, gave viewers, enough credit. Yeah, because, I think that all of this material could be handled in such a way that it would be, instead of being absolutely horrifying, it could be in equal parts mesmerizing and enlightening. The real message here is twofold. And that is, one, that there is true evil in the world, a pure, unadulterated evil. I will not call it demonic. I have never seen a demon. I do not know if demons exist or not. But I do know that pure evil exists in the world. I saw it attack my mother. I saw it called forth and welcomed into that house in a way that should never have happened, not ever. And, and I don't blame Mrs. Warren for that. She brought someone with her that night when they showed up unexpectedly at the door. They had called way earlier in the day. And, Lorraine told my mother that she and Ed would like to drop by the house. And my mom was very reluctant to have them over because my father was due home from a very long extended trip. He came home tired and cranky. All he wanted to do was have dinner and watch a Red Sox game. And, it was August and it was hot and, he just wanted to relax. And, it was well before cell phones had been invented. It was, 50 years ago this January. That was the anniversary of the day that we moved in, 50 years to the day.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a long time ago. There were no cell phones. There were no microwaves. There were no dishwashers. There were no, things that we just take for granted as part of our everyday lives had not even been invented yet. So it was, There was no way for her to contact the Warrens and tell them, Roger said, no, don't come. And when they showed up, they had a whole entire entourage with them. And my mother was not forewarned about that. They kind of sprung that on her,
gosh.
And so when all these people start walking in the house, of course my father's pissed off. Of course he is. And the more pissed off my father got, the more my mother shut down, because she felt guilty that she had, sort of kind of allowed it, but she didn't know that they were all coming. And, there had to have been 8 or 9 people that came in this group, and my father was just livid. And he did not want what they intended to do to happen. And he, just didn't think that it was in anybody's best interest. He didn't even, it was 1974. We'd lived there for 3 years, and he still wasn't quite convinced that the house was quote unquote haunted or not. He says he was. But he was really, actually, Renee, you've met my dad. I mean, at least, in cyberspace you have. And, he is very protective of his family. And it took him decades to admit that he was so afraid that he had moved his girls, his 5 little girls, and his beloved wife into an environment in which he had zero control of it. Zero. It was a house alive with death. It was shared space. It was off the space-time continuum. It was a timeless and an utterly ethereal. It was a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse.
Yes.
That's what it was. That's what I've always described it as. But, we didn't even have use of the vernacular. There really wasn't a lot of, I never heard the word supernatural before I met Mrs. Warren in my life. I never heard the word paranormal. Right. I never heard seance. I never heard, ghost was a
portals,
sheet with
any of that
in it. Yeah, for it was a costume to wear at Halloween. An old white sheet with holes cut in it for eyes. That was, it was not on the radar when we moved into that house. That was the last thing that anybody was thinking was, oh my God, I wonder if this house is haunted. No, my mother wanted that house because of its historical significance. Mm-hmm. My mother wanted that house because she was drawn to it, because as a student of history and as a lover of New England, having been born and raised in South Georgia, this was an extraordinary place. And, that my parents were even able to pull the financing together to get that house is just, everything had to fall exactly into place, precisely the way that it did, in order for us to even be there. If one thing had been different, we would never have ended up at the farm. It was, honest to God, we had to clean and sell our boat. We had a boat that we would take out on Narragansett Bay in the summer. We lived in a much smaller house in a suburb of Providence in Cumberland, Rhode Island. And in the summer, my father would dock our boat in Apponaug. Anybody that knows Rhode Island knows Apponaug. It's just a little enclave of Warwick, Rhode Island, on the bay. And, that was our fun, was going out and just, I'm not a big fan of boats. In other words, I've never even been on a cruise ship. I will never be on a cruise ship.
Well, you were on the Queen Mary, but it was docked.
Yeah, it's docked. Yeah, it's, if I have to jump overboard, really. It was, I have no desire to be out on the ocean. It's a wild thing as far as I am concerned. And if I can't see the shoreline, then I'm out too far. So I've had a fear of that since I was a child. And when we would go out on our boat, but we had to sell our boat, and and we had to, my father had to liquidate some other assets. And, we were just a perfectly normal middle-class American family. And then one event after another occurred in Cumberland that virtually catapulted our family to the farm. And it was like a cosmic conspiracy. It was like a confluence of events which occurred that caused my mother to want to leave Cumberland and never look back. And she just kept saying to my father, I want to raise my girls in the country. I want a place in the country. We need a place in the country. And he went on a business trip. He was not a truck driver. I don't know where they came up with that, but my father was a professional businessman, and he owned his own business, and he would sometimes have to travel for business. And he went away on a business trip, and my mother opened up the paper one night after she had taken me up to a flute lesson at Mount St. Charles Academy in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and had bought a paper to read while she was waiting for me. And she brought the paper home, and once we all went to bed, she opened it, and she opened it directly to the page where the advertisement for the farmhouse was. And it leapt off the page into her eyes. And at 9:00 at night, she called the realtor, which back in those days, that was, even now that's rude, but back in those days, you never called anybody after 7:00 in the evening. That was that was family time. That was leave them alone time. But she was adamant that she needed to go see the farm the next day. And she emptied our family bank account to put earnest money down on it so that nobody would buy it out from underneath her after she saw it. And when my father got home, he's like, great, Carolyn, that's just great. You left enough money in the account for bread and milk. How do we get the check back? And she's like, I'll get the check back. I'll get it back. I'll cancel the thing. Let's just go look at the farm. I just need you to go look at this place. And then if you want to, just nix it, then we will. She said, but I had to do something to hold on to it because I was so afraid that somebody would buy it out from underneath us while you were away. It was the most, spontaneous, it was just a real, not like my mother to do something like that, just not.
It just seems like everything was like drawing, beckoning,
Yeah. And then they found out at the closing of the house that no one else had ever called on the advertisement for that farm. No one. My mother's phone call was the only one that they ever got on the old Arnold Estate.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah. And it ran in the paper. They had a 6-month contract on the ad, and nobody ever called on that property, just my mom. And she didn't even find that out until the closing. It was meant to be. It had meant to be written all over it. But I will tell you one thing. The day that we left in 1980, and my heart was broken. I felt like I was being torn away from the only place that ever felt like home to me. And I couldn't believe that it was happening. I couldn't believe that my parents sold that farm out from underneath me while I was in my senior year of college, and no one bothered to call me, and no one asked my opinion. And I thought our family was a democracy, not a dictatorship. And when my father called and said, honey, we sold the farm, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I was blown away. I burst into tears. I was inconsolable, and he couldn't deal with me. He said, I've got to put your mom on the phone. Let me put your mom on the phone. And the thing that she said to me that made me realize that I needed to pull myself together was when she told me that she had told my father that she would not survive another winter in that house. And that that we had to sell the farm, we had to move on because it was the farm or it was her life. And So, you put those two things on a scale and you know what side I came down on. But my sister Nancy never forgave them. Nancy and I both loved that farm like it was the only place we'd ever lived, the only place we were ever supposed to live, that it was heaven on earth, that it was our place, and that we would live there for our lives. And, when we were forced to leave because my mother couldn't take 1 minute more, and then they put the house on the market in the spring of 1980, and it languished for months and months. Nobody called, and it was priced to sell. I mean, they practically gave it away. And my father ended up going to the abutting landowners in Massachusetts and cutting them the deal of the freaking century on that piece of property. Mm. And my sister Nancy was so angry. She was their babysitter, and she went to them, and she refused to move. She refused to come with us as our family. We never lived under the same roof again. She went to the new homeowners, and she said, I know you want to do some work on the house. I'll stay on indefinitely as the caretaker and protect the house while you have the work done. And they said, oh, that's great. Just live here for free. And, they were wealthy, and there was just no reason to not have somebody watching over the property, instead of just leaving it vacant. And so
she wasn't reluctant.
Packed up.
She wasn't reluctant to stay there?
No.
On her own?
No.
And so she stayed by herself?
Well, she did, and then eventually her boyfriend Eddie moved in, and his name was Eddie Richardson. And the Richardson family are actually the ones that built that property, that the property was deeded to in 1680. And through marriage, what was the Richardson property became the Arnold Estate, because that was back in a time when women were not legally allowed to own property. And so only through marriage could it be transferred. So 8 generations of one extended family lived and died in that house, and a whole bunch of them never left or visited very routinely.
Wow, that's amazing. We're getting really, really close. I think about 2 minutes to break time. But I just wanted to ask you, why was it that the Warrens sort of focused on your mom? What made them think she was possessed? Because I haven't heard anything that sounded like she was possessed.
Well, she wasn't. She was affected by the house, and there was some very strange stuff going on with her. But, nothing that would have been indicative of possession. And if something the night of the seance did enter her briefly, and she was speaking in a language that doesn't exist on this earth, and she was howling and, just screaming in pain, her body curled up like a ball inside the chair she was sitting in. I mean, really to the extent that you would expect to hear bones breaking. And it was horrific. It was the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life. I hope never to encounter anything like it again in my life. When I just talk about it, it's like being right back there as though I'm a child. It was a truly traumatic event, and I give thanks to God every single day that my mother has absolutely no recollection of it. But I guarantee you, everyone else that was in that house the night that it happened remembered it for the rest of their lives.
Oh, my goodness. That is absolutely scary. I can't imagine as a 15-year-old what it would have been like to see my mom under that kind of attack. It had to be just terrifying.
It was.
Oh my
I felt
goodness,
helpless and hopeless.
What a life!
I did.
What a life!
Yeah, I'll never get over it. I never will.
I can imagine. I don't know how you could. Something like that would be, would change you forever. Yep. We're going to take a quick break, or a small break here for some good words from our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to speak more with Andrea about her experiences at the real life conjuring house, but also about some things she's been working on subsequently and some new, I guess, would it be discoveries or realizations? But we're going to find out because she's got a lot more going on than just ghosts in the house at the Conjuring House. So stay with us and we'll be... Oh, we're also going to take some questions from the chat room. I see some coming in. So we'll address those when we come back as well. All right, everybody, we'll be right back.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
A birthday without her mom. An anniversary without her husband. Her wedding day without her dad. These are the days when military families feel it most of all. The loss of their soldier, their sailor, their airman, their Marine, their Coast Guardsman. Families never forget their loved ones lost to war or illness or suicide. Families never forget, and neither do we. We are TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. We provide resources, support, and comfort to heal the hearts and meet the needs of grieving military families, all at no cost to them. Your generosity can make an enormous difference in the lives of the families of our fallen military heroes. Our military families need to know they are not alone and they are not forgotten. Show them your support at TAPS.org.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. the on-air live button. So just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, the KGRADB.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back to Night Vision. I'm your host, Renee Barnett. Tonight, my very special guest is author Andrea Perron. She's also a talk show host, and she is also I don't know if you want to call her a survivor of the Conjuring House, the real-life Conjuring House, but she's certainly an experiencer, and her family is the family that was portrayed in the 2013 movie, which is hugely popular, called The Conjuring. We were talking about her experiences there with paranormal activity of different kinds. But while we were on break, interestingly enough, just a little full disclosure here. Normally, during the breaks of my show, I'll jump up and run and go get more coffee, maybe even grab something out of the refrigerator and bring back to munch on, or run to the restroom or something like that. But I want you to know that I did not leave my seat, because we were so enthralled with Andrea's story that we just continued. Bill and I, our wonderful producer, continued to talk about it. And he shared some pictures. I don't know if you guys are in the chat room, but if you're not, there are some images being shared in there. Just go to Discord and look for KGRA and join us in the chat room. You can see some pictures there. Also, if you want to pose a question to Andrea or me, which I doubt, but certainly to Andrea, please put them in the chat room. Now, in those pictures that Bill just posted in the chat room, they were close-ups of the windows taken from photos that many of you probably have seen online of the Perron family standing out in front of the house. And in the chat room, our good friend Neutron noticed, that there was something there in the window. So Bill drew my attention to it during the break, and Andrea says, oh, yes. And even Bill's mom looked at it and said, it's an alien. And Andrea said, yeah, it absolutely was. So one of the things that we're going to get into in this hour is the alien or the ET connection with the Conjuring House, and also into Andrea's further research and interests. And before we do that, if I could please just indulge you for just a moment, I wanted to do a little solid for a good friend of ours in the Night Vision family. This broadcast, this show has been going on for a number of years in a few different venues. And during one incarnation of Night Vision, I had a news segment that was pre-recorded and presented each week by a young man called Alan Maxon. I called him Night Vision Newsman, Alan Maxon, on the show, in case you remember that. But he would share various, interesting news, controversial stuff, paranormal things. And it was a nice little segment that we had. And just this week, I was contacted by Alan regarding a project that he's working on. And I wanted to draw your attention to it, if you don't mind. I mean, I have all respect for independent filmmakers. Alan and I worked together in television for, broadcasters and networks and things. But making an independent film is just totally, totally different. But it's also totally, totally rewarding because, you know, when you're an independent filmmaker, you're actually allowed to be the artist making the creation instead of having business people tell you, oh, we need it to be slanted this way, or we need it to look like that, or we need this villain, or, you know, and by the end of the day, sometimes your story ends up unrecognizable. I've done in each film that gets made is definitely a minor miracle. It is very difficult to get a film made. Funding is very, very difficult. There's all and distribution is a nightmare. So anyone that takes that mantle up, I have a lot of respect for. And my friend Alan has a new project called Alien Planet, and it's a new sci-fi film. And I would ask that you, if you don't mind, here's the log line from the film. 2 alien species can't get past their differences, but when faced with a common hardship and stranded together on a hostile planet, they must learn to put aside their prejudices. So if you don't mind, go to Indiegogo.com, have a look at Alien Planet, and if you're so inclined and are able, maybe make a little donation to Alan's project, or a big one if you can. But he's a wonderful guy, and I'm sure his team is the same, and they're working hard on this project and just trying to get it done, get it out to the people. So I would love it if you guys would take a look at Indiegogo.com, look up Alien Planet, watch the trailer that he has there, and donate if you can. That's it. That's my plug for the night. So speaking of extraterrestrials, you know, during the break, Andrea, we actually just continued our conversation as we so often do. And we had one of our listeners note that there was something in the photo that looked to be very suspicious, you know, so we started all looking at it. But actually, before I get to that, I apologize. If I could get to a couple of questions from the chat room, in fact, from Neutron first, who's the one that noticed the photographs. His question to you, Andrea, is, has any of the negative energies followed you after you left the home?
Nothing negative touches me. I don't allow that. In fact, I think, you know, I blind them with my light. It doesn't, there's nothing that's negative in I've had a couple of encounters. I had one recently here in my house in Florida. And it was almost a duplicate of something that happened when I was writing the trilogy, my original trilogy, House of Darkness, House of Light, and it was a growling sound, a low, very ominous growling sound that was coming from really the corner of the room, but from ceiling level. And, you know, I won't swear on your broadcast, but basically what I said to it about 15 years ago and what I said to it again last week was, get the F out.
Right.
You know,
and then what happened?
And it stopped. It went away. And it was just to make its presence known, just to let me know that it's still around. But no, I will not tolerate it. Absolutely will not tolerate it. And, you know, that's the thing. We've got the power. You know, people think that they are powerless against, you know, the ethereal, that they are powerless against, you know, what emerges from the netherworld. Well, we're all surrounded by spirit all of the time. You know, you don't have to go to a particular location to have an experience.
Right.
There is,
but do you think that
there's no veil.
Do you think that had you not been in the place where you were, like if you'd have been in a more negative place, do you think it's possible for things to follow you from one place to the other? if you sort of
absolutely,
allow it.
because, well, I mean, there is no space-time continuum as we perceive it in the three-dimensional, five-sensory realm in which we live. It's, that's really kind of a machination of humanity, that we measure time the way that we do and manipulate it the way that we do. And, every 4 years we have to finagle with our calendar to make it all, work right. And,
Right.
and I mean, it's just the way that we measure things on this planet according to the movement in our own solar system. And it's different in many other solar systems. And there are many races that, have their own way of measuring their own beingness. But in the spirit realm, I really don't think that they have any sense of time or place, or, they certainly have the ability to transit in ways that we do not. So, yes, I mean, things can occasionally rear their ugly heads, but I don't put up with it. I don't tolerate negativity around me on this planet, and I certainly don't tolerate it from beyond this realm. Absolutely not. And we have the power to stop it. We are earthbound creatures. We have the power.
Along that very same line, Ronald says, what is the easiest way to find the light in this dark world?
It comes from within. We are the living, breathing source of creator consciousness. We are the eyes, whether you call it source energy, whether you call it God consciousness, whether you call it whatever you call it. It is love. It is the glue that binds the molecules together, each to each. And it is our superpower. It is the most powerful force in the universe. And I know that this isn't me preaching or, expressing some kind of faith that I have developed over the course of my life, because I know what I know because of what I've experienced in this world. And I perceive it to be my job, why I'm on this planet. I mean, I spent the first 50 years of my life wandering around this planet going, oh, what is this? Why am I here? What, was there some clerical error made in the cosmos that placed me here? Because I have felt like a misfit since birth. And it wasn't until about maybe 12 years ago that I started to speak my truth, when I found my own personal courage and I stopped giving a damn who believed me or not. And it was more important that I get the message out. I think that there are two important questions that humanity faces in this place called soul school, where the test always precedes the lesson. And one of them is there something beyond our mortal existence? And I can answer that question unequivocally. Yes, there is. I still can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you what exactly was the nature, the organic nature of what we perceived around us and with us in that farmhouse. But I can tell you that it exists. I can't tell you exactly who they were. It doesn't matter who they were. That they still are is the miracle. That they still are. And I find an enormous amount of comfort in that, in knowing that it isn't just ashes to ashes, dust to dust, that only applies to the vessel that we each inhabit, that each soul inhabits for the time that it is on this planet, and that the vessel will eventually die and deteriorate, but the soul goes on. And I know that. And I live a very peaceful life, a very peaceful existence, knowing that all the love that I have shared in my life and everything that I have learned and absorbed and all the art that I have seen and all the literature that I have read and all the landscapes that I have perceived and everything that has made me who I am in this moment to this moment in my life will not be lost, but will be merely transformed with my death. The second question that I think is the most important of all is, are we alone in the universe? No, we are not alone in the universe. We are so not alone, it's ridiculous how not alone we are. We are part of a living, breathing, existential universe that is teeming with life and is teeming with a variety of races and a variety of life forms that circumnavigate this globe in numbers that people can simply not wrap their minds around. So when I get really angry with the lying liars that lie, which is, our government, and all the others on the planet that have information that they withhold, I have information that has come directly to me from the galactic family, and that message is forgive them. They know not what they do. Forgive them. And very much the way that Jesus Christ hanging on the cross said, that they don't know what they're doing. They think they're protecting us. They think they're protecting their power, and their knowledge, and they think that we can't handle the truth, that we just simply cannot handle the truth. So over the years, I have come to realize that we, the credible sources with incredible experiences, the people who are the common people with uncommon contact, are the ones who are the point of disclosure. We are the point of disclosure. I don't need the Department of Defense or the president or anybody else to tell me that we are not alone in the universe. I have known that since I was born. I have known that since I saw an entire flotilla of vessels floating silently over the farmhouse when I was 13 years old. And it was the most beautiful thing that I have ever seen in my life. And I knew that that was my personal paradigm shift. Nothing was ever the same for me after that. And it has been the source of much consternation, because there's a part of me that is just defiant in the face of willful ignorance. There is a part of me that is defiant in the face of the lies that have been perpetrated about the truth of our existence, in conjunction with the many other life forms that are sophisticated enough and are spiritually centered enough to come to this world to help us, not to hurt us. Because if they wanted to hurt us, they could have done it millennia ago. That's not why they're here. They are so far evolved from what we, the rudimentary Homo sapiens of planet Earth, who perceive ourselves to be uber intelligent, and yet, we're as dumb as dirt, and that is an insult to dirt. It's much more intelligent than we are. All animals know more than we do. And I have espoused this for decades of my life. And what I will say to anyone who is willing to listen is that to be touched by spirit is not a curse, but a blessing. It is that rare and precious glimpse into the realm from which we come and will inevitably return. And we know nothing in comparison to what there is to know in the universe. This mystery of life, there are things in this life that are meant to remain a mystery. The universe keeps its secrets, but it likewise shares its wisdom if we are only willing to listen, and the light comes from within.
Absolutely. And I think it may be generous to suggest that the government, isn't telling us things because we can't handle it. If anything, maybe they can't handle it,
That's exactly right.
And
That's exactly
also,
right. And
I think the more we know, obviously, the more powerful we are. And so if there are secrets that can be kept, there's always something holding over our heads,
Well, it's even more complicated than that. They perceive that it will somehow rob them of their power. And so that is, my sister said to me a few years ago, God, what's going on with NASA? They don't seem to really be doing anything. And I said, oh, honey, what's going on with NASA? You have no idea. I mean, NASA, there are elements of NASA that are so deep underground. And what's happening there, Area 51 is all but defunct because it's been outed. There are other places that are doing research and, that actually have vessels that have been procured that have either crashed to Earth or have, the Roswell vessels. There were dead and living beings in the Roswell vessels when they were found in the desert. And the government, I have to give them credit. I mean, their first, their disposition was to first tell the truth and then realized, oh my God, no, we have to retract that. No, we can't be telling, because it created just this national fervor and this, curiosity that it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming to them. And I think the scientists. And so, if it was overwhelming to them, how would the general population deal with this information? So, it was, the galactic family has let us know, those of us that are in constant contact that, they are to be forgiven. That no good will come from retribution. It certainly won't resolve the problem. They make contact with individuals all over the planet all of the time, and we are the ones of us that have the courage, that can be brave enough to speak our truth and not care what other people say or how they react. That are the ones that are disclosing their existence around us. But the most important thing, I think, is that, we are still a race that is deeply rooted in religious beliefs and belief systems all over the planet. And the knowledge of their existence would fracture those belief systems. And they think that it's all that's holding our societies together, when in fact it is what has routinely and systematically been shredding our societies for 2,000 years plus.
Oh my goodness. People, of all ilks co-opt religion to declare wars, constantly. Right. It's like killing in the name of the Lord.
Yeah, you don't believe in Jesus Christ, off with your head.
I'll kill you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Crusades, they estimate that upwards of 10 million people were raped and burned and sliced up and diced up and tortured and murdered in the name of Jesus Christ.
That's
just my God.
Horrific.
I mean, look what we did to Jesus Christ. And I have no doubt that Jesus Christ walked this earth, and I have no doubt that Jesus Christ was holy. But I also believe that it's entirely possible and, in fact, highly plausible that Jesus Christ was an extraterrestrial that was sent to this planet and that was implanted in the womb of Mary with her knowledge. There was nothing in the sky astronomically that could have cast the kind of light that led the three kings, the wise men, to the stable of the baby Jesus. There was nothing. I've always wondered about that. There was nothing. The astronomers will tell you there was nothing going on in the skies that could have cast that kind of light. That beam was from a vessel, and it led them straight to him, and they declared to the world that the Son of God had been born, and his message was peace and love and harmony and tranquility, and love thy neighbor as thy brother, love thy neighbor as thyself, do unto others as though you are the others, because we are all one. And it is that realization of oneness that is now coming into humanity in a very visceral, organic, pervasive way, as all of us are facing our own mortality simultaneously and considering our existence in a way that none of us ever has before. And we are changing, and we are spiritually ascending, and we are each coming to understand that a house divided will fall. We must love each other powerfully. And that's the only way that we can heal the rifts, the self-inflicted wounds that humanity routinely, daily, momentarily casts upon, each other, whether it be creating and using weapons of war, or just, hating the guy across the street because he doesn't believe what you believe, or, we have got to come to a much clearer understanding of who we are and why we're here and what our source creator wants for us, because I truly do believe that source energy, that the creative energy in the universe, and I don't call it he, I call it it. Mm-hmm. And it's the way that it sees its own creation through us. It actually witnesses its creation through its creation. And when we come to understand that we are born of love, we are made of love, we are the essence of love, and that it is our job to simply love. On my fan page, the Buttercup Brigade, I have a banner on it that I've just left there forever because it just speaks to me. And I don't know who wrote it. I don't know where it came from. I just came upon it once years and years ago. And it says very simply, I did not come to teach you. I came to love you. Love will teach you.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. I have a saying like that I've been looking for the origins of, and I say it every now and then, just hoping someone will recognize it and tell me. But it's my favorite saying of all time, and it is that every act of human kindness uplifts all of mankind forever.
It does. It literally heals the world. It changes the vibration. It raises the vibration of the planet.
It's like a stone in the water. Yeah.
That's right. It is the ripple in the water of the pebble tossed into the center of a pond, and the ripples of energy radiate out and out into infinity. And every single act of kindness, every act of generosity, every thought that is, thoughts are things. Nothing exists in our material world that began as anything other than a thought, an idea, a concept, a dream. And that's where it was all created, in mind. And then we had the ingenuity and the wherewithal to create what we envisioned. And so thoughts are things. And if we are willing to do the simplest act, the most simple act, and that is to simply envision in our mind what we want the world to look like, and then hold that intention, we are literally healing the world.
We see so much anger and division, not only in the United States, I might say, but certainly through Europe and around the world.
It's global. Yeah, it's a global phenomenon.
What is it? to me, being angry and being hateful, name calling, all these things, to me, that's very draining. It would be very draining to maintain that anger all the time and to say mean things, because it's certainly not good for anybody. I mean, thoughts are power, words are power. We know that when we see someone do an act of kindness toward another person, that the person who's being helped, their endorphin levels are immediately raised. The person who's doing the act of kindness, their endorphin levels are immediately raised. And anyone who witnesses that act gets the same benefit. And it's like, by the same token, we know people that when they walk in the room, it feels like they've sucked all the air out of it, and they're negative and they're complaining and they're mean. It's like that takes so much more energy than just loving and living and let live. You know what I mean? I don't understand why people want to hang on to that kind of anger. I mean, for one thing, it can't be good for them physically, health-wise, certainly not mentally. So what do you think it is that, is it just that spirit of evil running through the world, or what is it? Are they, what makes them want to hang on to that kind of a view and that sort of us against them kind of mindset, rather than to say, hey, let's all work together? And
I don't want to sound in any way Pollyanna, because I think that would be, I don't want to contradict myself. I think that I am a being of light and love, but I also have one hell of a temper, and I am a spiritual warrior for peace. And I'll tell you what, that's not a counterintuitive concept. I think that there is good and evil in the world, and that when you see evil in action, you had damn well better speak up about it, because silence is tacit approval. And I have, in my own process of spiritual ascension, said some horrible things. Words have come out of my mouth that I won't retract because I meant them when I said them. I have gone through my own cleansing, and I think that, I didn't know until 5 years ago that I was even capable of hating another human being. And over these last 5 years, I have discovered that, yes, I am indeed, that when I see what I perceive to be evil intent, evil actions, when I see something that I absolutely disapprove of and that I think is counterproductive to life as we know it and to the disintegration of our democracy. I was born into a democracy. I'd like to die with it still being a democracy. I've had plenty to say. And I've probably alienated some people saying it, but I have to speak my truth. And, what I disapprove of, I'm not going to just sit by and say, oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'm just going to let it go. Oh, I don't talk about that because it might upset somebody. I don't care who it upsets. I think that, that it is incumbent upon us to call out the evil. I think that it is incumbent upon us. And I see two separate and distinct mindsets at work, not only in this country, but also in the world. And they are in opposition. They are in conflict. And one of those mindsets is all for me, the rest of you are on your own. And the other one is we are all in this together. And I think you know which side I come squarely down on. And so when I see something that I find highly objectionable, I say so. And I know that has, chased some people away. I don't care. I'm not here for everyone. I'm not here to please everyone. It's impossible to do that. And when I see something that I think is destructive and that is, creating pain, and when I see, a lying, I'll say, you're lying. You're lying. I know it. I feel it in my gut. You're lying. I just get away from me. Get away from me. I'm not here for everyone. I am here for truth. That is what I am here for. And I speak my truth, and I speak up on behalf of others. I have been a civil rights activist, a women's rights activist, an animal rights activist. I've been in Black Lives Matter marches. I have been in, I'm an activist. I can't just sit back. I'm an anti-war activist. I'm every kind of activist that you can see is what I am. And I'm forthright, and I am absolutely honest about what I see, how I perceive it, and how I react to it. And if that makes me the enemy, then I'm the enemy. But I am not going to live in a world where I just allow things to happen. And, I got into a fight not that long ago with a really good friend of mine who is, and he's former military intelligence. And he helped, back in the day, helped break the codes that ended the Cold War. Speaks fluent Russian, and his attitude now is, whatever. And I said, well, my dear, if all the rest of us had felt that way in 1941 through 1945, we'd all be speaking German now. Okay, so, I think there are some things that are worth fighting for. And, how many lives were lost just in this country fighting fascism and fighting the Nazi movement? That's pure, unadulterated evil. Millions and millions and millions of innocent people were killed simply because they were Jewish. Because, and they didn't just kill the Jews, they killed all the intelligentsia, they killed all the homosexuals that they could get their hands on, they killed, and I'm a gay rights activist too. I'm a human rights activist and an animal rights activist, and anybody that doesn't like it can go piss up a rope.
You were talking about how, there are certain people that are, I'm not sure why, but are able to receive information that, most of the rest of us are not. Has any of the information that you've received given you any further insight into, number one, the pandemic, and number two, the state of affairs, socially and politically?
Yeah, but I have to take exception to your initial premise that only some of us are allowed to have this information and the rest of us are cut off from it. I don't think that is true. I think that in terms of connectivity, in terms of cosmic consciousness, I think that all of us are capable of making that profound connection. Every single one of it is. One of us is, all of us are. And because we all tap into the same cosmic consciousness. Everything is one thing. Everything is energy. And once we rise in terms of a level of our own spiritual ascension, and it's not a vertical ladder, it's a horizontal pathway through life. We're all in different places at different times, but as we open our hearts to each other and we understand that we're all, virtually identical, that, the skin color is cosmetic, we all bleed red, we all cry tears, we are all Homo sapiens, we are all humanity. And, coming to that realization of oneness, I think is critical to prying wide open the third eye and going not only deeper into the fourth dimension, but into the fifth dimension and beyond. And I think that that's exactly what's happening, that I get the messages that I do, that I have the interaction that I do, that I have the engagement that I have with the galactic family. is something that has been virtually lifelong with me, but anyone can achieve it at any time. I go from event to event to event around this country, and I teach people how to open themselves up to all of this, to spirit and to extraterrestrials. It is all one thing. It is existence. And it might be in different dimensions and it might be in different realms, but it's not really, because if everything is one thing, then all we need to do is to perceive our old reality with new eyes. It's not that our reality has changed. Our perceptions of it are changing.
Yes.
And the messages are very clear to me. In terms of the pandemic, I was told 6 feet is not nearly enough. In terms of maintaining distance, because of the nature of the transmission, the highly communicable transmission of this particular novel coronavirus, which operates as a highly intelligence, not as we think of intelligence. Trees are intelligent. They hold hands with their roots underground where we never even see them. They communicate with each other. Flowers are intelligent. They know when to open and when to close. They know how to protect themselves from the elements so that their blossoms are not destroyed as soon as they open. All insects, all animals are intelligent. Everything embodies and imbues consciousness and intelligence in some way, shape, form, or another. Just because it's not identical to what we perceive to be conscious intelligence doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, in the same way that when you go out at night on the new moon and you do not see that orb in the sky, you don't for a moment guess that it's no longer there. You just can't see it, in the same way that you cannot see the air that you breathe into your lungs that keep you alive. It's still there. It's invisible.
So did they give you any indications about how this was going to work out, the pandemic?
Yeah, because when I get mad, which I occasionally do, which you might hear in my voice right now, is, and when things were getting really bad, and, the empathetic part of me was like, oh, Jesus Christ, I cannot even believe 500,000 people are dead. And, it's much more. It's more than the numbers that are actually being recorded. And it didn't need to happen this way. And, and I come outside and I look up into the cosmos and I say, get down here now and do something. Don't you see how screwed we are? Don't you see what kind of trouble that we are in down here? If you're here to help us, then help us. And I have those moments from time to time, and the message that I get back is, so you thought this would be easy? You thought this would be easy? This is why you're here. You're here now. During the paradigm shift, you are here with purpose and reason. Fulfill your destiny. Speak your truth.
Wow.
Because you see, I've had to come to the realization that what is toxic within us is rising because of incendiary flame throwing, is rising to the surface to be cleansed. It's rising to the light to be cleansed. As in the same way that I have come to the realization that they are not separate from us, that I am them and they are me and we are one. And so if I want to heal this world, then I have to do my job. I can't ask them to come do it for us. And I wrote in my newest book, I wrote the shortest of all the chapters was the most profound. And I came out one night about 4 years ago after being pushed around in my bed, literally pushed in my bed. Get up, come out. And I had just gone to sleep. It was like, 2:45 in the morning, and I had been working late, as I always do. And I had laid down and I was exhausted, and it was winter and I was cold. I mean, God almighty, the temperature had plummeted to about 65 down here in Florida. I thought it was going to freeze to death. I had to put my slippers on. I had to put my robe on. And I came outside and I said, "What is it? What?" And I didn't see anything in the sky at all. I didn't see any lights. I didn't see any movement. I saw nothing going on in the sky other than the constellations around me. But instead, I had a flash in my mind that almost blinded me in the moment that it happened. And I was suddenly 12 years old again. And I was at a chicken farm with my family that was just across the border in Connecticut. And we had just moved to the farm a few months earlier, and my father decided that he wanted to be a gentleman farmer and he wanted his kids to eat natural eggs. And so we went to this chicken farm to buy eggs instead of buying them from the A&P. And my father was talking to the farmer, and the farmer's wife took us into her incubator area where she was allowing some of the chickens to be born. And I saw the eggs moving, and I got very excited, and I saw a tiny little beak start pecking its way out of one of the eggs. And I reached over to crack the egg to release the chick so that I could see the baby. And my mother gently caught me and removed my hand, and she said, "Oh, no, honey, if you crack open the egg, the baby will die." I was mortified out of sheer ignorance. I almost killed a baby chick before it even had a chance to peck its way out of its shell and come into the world. And I learned my lesson so well that I completely forgot about it. I assimilated it immediately, and I never thought about it again until I was 59 years old. And they hit me with that. And I came back in the house, and I opened up my computer, and I wrote that chapter 3 years before I even began writing my book. And it's called The Chicken and the Egg. And what I realized in that moment of that gift that they gave me was they can't do this for us. We have gotten ourselves into a situation in this oppressive 3D sensory realm that we are in, where we literally have to peck our way out of our shell so that we can experience the universe, because we're stuck in this world. And the amount of energy that is required to peck our way out of this shell is exactly equivalent to the amount of energy that will be required to sustain ourselves as living, breathing, sentient, prescient beings on the outside of the shell. And that is the spiritual ascension, and that is the paradigm shift. And we, my friends, are squarely in it right now. Wow. They can't do it for us. They can't save us from ourselves. We have to do it.
And, you know, I mean, when we talk about the pandemic, for some reason that I can't quite fathom, the idea of this pandemic has become embroiled in so much political rancor. And you know, I mean, it's a health issue. It's not a political issue, but somehow, I'm not sure, how it gets tangled up like that. But it's all deliberate, and I don't even think that you want to go there with me on this, because you don't have another 2 hours to give me tonight. No, unfortunately, I'm going to have you back for that one. Yes, it is. This is absolutely all deliberate. This is what George Bush used to call strategery. We are all fear-based carbon units, and there are those in power who appeal to the fear-based, and then there are those who shun it and are rooted in love and rooted in light and rooted in good conquers evil, love conquers fear. If that was not the truth of our existence, none of us would be here anymore.
We would have been conquered by the evil. We would have been killed off by the oppressors. We would have succumbed. And we haven't. I mean, our democracy just had a near-death experience, and we watched it revive itself 6 hours later when the people who were having their lives threatened found the strength and the fortuity to walk back onto the floor and count the votes and do their job. That just happened 2 months ago.
I mean, watching it on television unfold, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was crazy. But we're getting so close to the end of the show, and I wanted to get in one more question from the chat room.
Half of them probably already bailed already because they're like, "Oh God, she's one of those." Sorry. Well, I'm just, that's it.
Not.
If you don't like it, tune me out.
Exactly. I mean, what do we want? Do we want you to be disingenuous? I want to know what you really, really think, and everybody should have a right to. That's right, honey. Now, Brennan is in the chat room, and he said, I wanted to tell Andrea that I said hi. And I also...
he's my sweet darling. He's a sweet
good.
Darling.
I had a feeling you might know.
Young man.
And I wanted to ask her what some of the spirits that they saw at the farm looked like, because in the movie, Bathsheba looked scary. So I wanted to know if some of them were that scary.
It's all in the script, my dear boy. It's all in the script. I actually wish that he had not seen the film. I actually wish that he had read the books first, because then he would be wholly unimpressed with the film, and he would realize that it is a fictionalized version of events that bears no actual resemblance to our story, and the portrayal of our family bears no actual resemblance to who we are as individuals. Each and every one of us processed the events differently. We saw the spirits in different forms of manifestation. We saw the spirits sometimes as a swirling ball of mist as they were trying to garner enough energy to manifest in form. Sometimes we saw them as full-body apparitions. Sometimes we saw them. Bathsheba was not the culprit. Bathsheba was not even a member of the Arnold family. She lived at an adjacent farm with her husband, and she had 4 children, 3 of whom died before the age of 4. She lived a very long and miserable life. Her portrayal in the film is based solely on the speculation of Lorraine Warren. Lorraine Warren is the one that said she was the culprit in the house, and then she just, as a self-fulfilling prophecy, everything that she heard about that was negative in the house got blamed on Bathsheba. It wasn't Bathsheba. The offending spirit in the house was long dead before Bathsheba was even born. And, none of them ever walked up to us and said, oh, hello, by the way, my name is. They did not self-identify according to who they were in life. And they did make their presence known in a variety of ways.
Do you think that there were some
that they were able?
Oh, I'm sorry, honey. Do you think that there were some that were never alive, that it was something else?
I think that there was an interesting mix and a coalescing of extraterrestrial life forms and spirit activity in the house that some perceived to be ghosts, and that it was because, as I've always described that place, a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse. I think that so many people lived and died in that house that it literally took on an energy and a life force of its own, and it allowed for the entrance and exit of numerous beings from different realms, and that we never really knew from one moment to the next if it was 1976, if it was 1842 or 1730. We just didn't know. And that's why I wrote the books the way that I did. From the moment that we step on that property as the owners in Volume 1 to the moment that we leave that property in Volume 3, The stories are written not necessarily chronologically. I challenge my reader to step back, take a moment to pause and reflect on why one story might be something that happened to Cindy when she was 8, and the very next story was something that happened to Cindy when she was 14. And anybody who is a strictly linear thinker goes, whoa, wait a minute, I just lost 6 years. Well, no, you didn't. Everything that you're reading will be clear in your mind as though it's written along a Venn diagram when you're done reading those books. But in the interim, understand that I want my reader to assimilate the information in the same way that we lived it, a swirling sense of timelessness in that house. And I ask them to simply step back for a moment and ask themselves, why are these two stories together? Because it was the type of haunting. It was the type of experience. It was the type of contact that occurred. So every single chapter in the 3 books has a multitude of subchapters, and what it is a fleshing out of the experiences that we all had. Just know that everything that you're reading happened within the 10 years that we lived in that farmhouse. And at the end of the book, it will rip your heart out of your body and then hand it back to you healed, and you will not know how that happened.
Well, and your books are available on Amazon for anyone who's interested. House of Darkness, House of Light is the trilogy. And I'm sorry, what's the last one?
It's
one
all the same. Oh, the last one I have not released into the general public.
Now when's that one coming out?
This spring. I spent 2020 writing an extended version of it, because most of the book is about the forthcoming paradigm shift, and then suddenly it was here, and I needed to put it out as an extended version. It's loaded with full color photographs of extraterrestrials that I have seen, vessels that I have captured on film.
Wow.
It is called A Wonder to Behold, and it is only available through me personally right now, which is the limited edition, the first edition of the book. And my publisher has all my work that will come out as the extended edition within the next month or so, and it will be at that point in hardbound.
Fabulous. Oh my gosh, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Andrea. You please do promise to come back. I do. So many more things to ask you about, and I know that you'll have more to share every time. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening. Please join us next week with Dr. Christopher Carr when we talk about really the hope of dying. That's a good one to go out on. Thanks so much, everyone, and good night. Good night, Andrea.
Good night, sweetheart.